Thank you for watching our video. Please give us a big like, subscribe to our channel for new videos every day with amazing cars. Leave us your opinion in the comment section on the video. Thank you. What is the greatest generation of BMW M3, perhaps the most famous of BMW's high-performance M cars? Well, you might argue that the original E30 version should take top honors given that it was a true homologation racing special. Or perhaps the fourth generation M3, the E92, deserves a top spot for its wonderfully sonorous V8 engine. In truth, trying to name a definitive winner is a futile task. It's like attempting to decide on the best James Bond, with everyone having their own favorite. But for us the best of the bunch is the third generation M3, code-named E46. Where it all started. Even if you don't have the slightest interest in motor racing, you might know how the M3 story goes, such is the E30's legendary reputation. In order to compete in the fiercely competitive world of 80s touring cars, BMW CEO Eberhard von Kuenheim asked the engineers at his M division to develop a 3 Series-based racer. However, the rules at the time also demanded that 5,000 road-going versions be built in the space of 12 consecutive months in order to homologate the car. In 1985, the finished product was revealed at the Frankfurt Motor Show. Virtually nothing on the standard E33 series was left untouched. A wider stance front and rear demanded wider wheel arches, a higher top speed required a distinctive rear wing, and a newly developed 200 bhp 2.3-liter 4-cylinder engine resulted in a 0 to 62 miles per hour time of just 6.7 seconds, in 1985. Thankfully, it drove as well as it looked and cleaned up on the racetrack. And the rest, as they say, is history, with the M3 redefining what we expect from fast road cars. However, aside from kickstarting the M3 lineage, the E30 also inadvertently scuppered the chances of its successor, the E36 M3. Suffering from an acute case of difficult second album syndrome, the E36 M3 didn't live up to expectations. It was heavier, softer and ultimately less focused than its predecessor. So, it was a long wait for the E36's replacement. But as we said back in 2001, everything comes to he, or she, who waits. What car? Coupe of the Year, 4 years running. The E46 M3's brief was to blend the day-to-day usability of the E36 with the focused edge of the legendary E30. From a visual perspective, it certainly delivered. With wide arches, gills inspired by the iconic 1970s CSL, quad exhaust pipes and a distinctive power bulge rippling out of the aluminium bonnet, there was no mistaking it for a lesser 3 Series coupe. However, as with the greatest of M-badged cars, aesthetics came a clear second to the E46's awe-inspiring driving dynamics. The 3.2-liter straight-six engine from the E36 remained, but power increased to 343 bhp. The 0 to 62 miles per hour time came dipped below 5 seconds and a new rear differential improved handling. Naturally, we couldn't contain our excitement when it was named our 2001 Performance Car of the Year. Everything comes to he, or she, who waits. The M3 is back with a vengeance. If the heart of any performance car is its engine, the new M3 is bursting with health. Beneath the power bulge of the aluminium bonnet lies a 3.2-liter straight-six motor that develops 343 bhp and 269 feet-pound of pull, more than two-thirds of which is available at takeover. Although the top speed is restricted to 155 miles per hour, and this car piles on speed so easily you'll be grateful for that. The 0 to 60 miles per hour time comes down to under 5 seconds. But, impressive though those numbers are, they cannot hope to convey the thrills of piloting an M3. At full throttle acceleration in third and fourth gears, The scenery takes off in a fight past of blurred colors as you frantically refocus your eyes on ever more distance points. Or, if you prefer, you can pull away from little more than walking pace in sixth gear. And, as the speed picks up, the rumbling beat at low revs gives way to a roaring wail that could form the soundtrack to some apocalyptic Hollywood epic. And, if things aren't happening fast enough, simply press a button on the dash and the throttle response becomes more immediate, though you'll need to drive with even more finesse to keep things smooth and tidy. The M3's power is such that when the going gets damp you'd be able to prompt wheel spin at three-figure speeds, but for modern electronics. The Hone chassis of the M3 does an admirable job of harnessing all the power and torque, but pushing 343 bhp through the rear wheels of a comparatively light car is a surefire way for sideways action without a little additional help. What you're buying with the M3 is a 3 Series coupe in battle dress. Simply put, no performance coupe could come close to offering the same blend of talents as the E46 M3. And it didn't end there, because the E46 won again in 2002, 2003 and 2004, despite new contenders being flung at it every year. No small feat. What's the BMW E46 M3 like today? The car we're driving here is not only the ultimate iteration of the E46 M3, but it's also one of the finest limited-run M cars ever produced. The CSL, standing for Coupe Sport Lightweight, a moniker first given to the race-winning BMW 3.0 CSL, first arrived in 2003 and wowed the automotive world with its uncompromising track-focused specification. Using a mixture of carbon fiber reinforced plastic, sheet molding compound and thinner glass for its rear window, the CSL weighed just 1,385 kilograms to 110 kilograms less than the standard M3. But M's detail-obsessed engineers didn't stop there. The suspension received stiffer springs and shocks. Track-focused Michelin Pilot Sport Cup tires were designed specifically for BMW, and the engine was comprehensively retuned. Changes included modified camshafts, exhaust valves and a lightweight exhaust system, resulting in 355 bhp at a heady 7,900 revolutions per minute. It's an approach to tuning that we're rather used to today, but back in 2003 this kind of lightweight special was the sole preserve of supercar manufacturers. However, don't go thinking that the CSL feels run-of-the-mill in today's track-focused world. Far from it. As you slip into the upright bucket seats, close the carbon fiber-lined door and place your hands on the Alcantara-covered steering wheel, the CSL feels every bit the thoroughbred race car, a feeling that becomes heightened once you turn the key. Equipped exclusively with an automated manual SMG gearbox, the car chunters a bit off the line when cold, like a learner trying to find the biting point. A modern-day dual-clutch gearbox would put it to shame on road and track, but if you select manual mode and learn how to work your way around its shortcomings, lifting off the accelerator when you upshift, for example, makes the upshift smoother, it's possible to make decent progress. Once the road opens up, however, the gearbox's woes are easily forgiven. In a world of turbocharged performance cars, the M3's naturally aspirated engine is a breath of fresh air. Throttle response is virtually instantaneous and, thanks to a vast carbon fiber airbox beneath the bonnet, the engine sounds utterly glorious on its way to an 8,200 revolutions per minute redline. And the best bit is that none of it is synthesized. No augmentation, no speakers playing fake exhaust notes, just a beautiful intake howl, accompanied by a serrated metallic rasp from the lightweight exhaust. Perhaps BMW's current engineers need to have a listen to their back catalog. A lack of interference also pervades through to the CSL's handling. The steering feels quick and delicate with the rim positively bristling with information, giving you the confidence to push on in the kind of low-grip conditions we're experiencing this winter. And despite the CSL feeling more comfortable on smoother bitumen, the hardcore springs and dampers do a surprisingly good job of dealing with the undulating B-roads. In short, the CSL provides the kind of raw and engaging driving experience that is simply missing from today's best AM cars. And to think it only cost £58,000 in 2003. It makes the flawed £120,770 M4 GTS look a little silly, no? Thank you for watching our video. Please give us a big like, subscribe to our channel for new videos every day with amazing cars. Leave us your opinion in the comment section on the video. Thank you.